Right, hello everyone, or the two people who are probably watching in a minute. As you can tell, Carl is not here. He is having a nice, well-deserved break. But of course, me and Annie couldn't resist the opportunity to talk more about the championship. And after Bristol City's result today, I applaud Annie for this because we can never accuse him of being a fair weather fan who only comes on when his team wins. Unlike Ant when he got promoted and then had a social life. But love you, Ant, by the way. But anyway, Annie, let's remove football for a minute. How are you doing in general? Are you prepared for uni?
Yeah, we'll not talk about that, shall we?
Okay then. How about life in general then?
Yeah, it was all right, and then I had a nightmare setting all of this and this up. But it was not bad apart from football, which is predominantly my
You
life, to
just
be
want to
honest.
pretend for the minute it doesn't exist as far as Bristol City are concerned.
Yeah, let's forget that
Yeah,
ever happened,
yeah.
shall we?
I figured. Yeah, well, I'll have to make you resuffer at the end. Which okay then. Sorry guys, we were a little bit late, obviously, but as Carl is deciding to have a life of his own tonight. Tut tut, not good enough. How dare he? Either way, it was just a bit of time to set this whole thing up, but it looks like we are good to go and we are ready. So yeah, let's not waste people's time. Let's get right into the championship. So the let's start with Friday night. We'll go chronologically, but also it's a huge game. It was the tabletop. It was now the pace setters, Middlesbrough. They beat West Bromwich Albion 2-1 at the Riverside, and I know my pronunciation is going to be absolutely abhorrently terrible, but we're going to go with it anyway. We had goals from David Stilech and Kaylee Sene, I believe it is, to put Middlesbrough 2-0 ahead. Is it Oan Hegebo? Sorry, Hegebo. Okay, apologies if I've got that totally wrong. Obviously scored
I'll be.
a late consolation for West Brom, but that is now 2 defeats on the spin for West Brom. But it still doesn't derail their start of the season too much for me, considering it is away at Middlesbrough. But let's talk about Rob Edwards. What a job he's doing so far.
Yeah, I mean, I was really surprised. Not the fact they won this game, but just that start in general. They've been really good. Uh, yeah, of course, Ant's talking about Edwards'
I
looks.
was going to say, is this Is this like a physical
Uh,
thing or is this a managerial thing?
Fair enough.
You know,
Fair enough. Both ways. It's been great. Yeah, he's been fantastic for Barra so far, hasn't he? And he's not really
yeah,
put a foot wrong. Um, I thought they'd struggle a little bit to adapt to Edwards' ball per se, but I think they've done well. They've recruited well, haven't they? Britton,
yeah,
Target, Jones.
quality
Um,
signings. Yeah,
Really good. And then yesterday it was Ayling. Not yesterday. Friday night it was Ayling, Edmondson, and Alfie Jones as the back three with Target and Britain's fullback. Just championship sort of ready to go players who've been here, done it with the in the championship before. You know, Matt Target has played in the Premier League for the longest time. Luke Ayling's got promotion out of the division with Leeds. George Edmondson with Ipswich. Alfie Jones has played tons and tons of championship games with Hull. Callum Britton's done really well with Barnsley, got into the playoffs with Barnsley, and done really well at Blackburn. So this is a back five which is sturdy and doesn't really need to adapt too much to Edwards' ball, and has actually been perfectly moulded into Edwards' ball. Hackney and Morris are brilliant in the midfield, arguably the best two sort of performing midfielders in the championship right now. I'm sure there will be better names than Hackney and Morris. I don't know, Ipswich, Nunes
yeah.
and Kiyust or whatever, Matasiwa, maybe Leicester with Winks and Skip and whoever, right? Purely,
Don't let Ant hear you saying that on skip. By the way,
uh, but well, whoever it is, the year one parachute teams will probably have a little sort of maybe better on paper midfield, but these guys are performing. This pair is really performing and doing really well. Um, no,
do you have any comment to make on that, or are we just going to pass
uh,
over it and just
let's
pretend it
just
never happened?
let's just gloss over that, shall we?
Yeah, fair enough.
As I was saying, they're performing really well. Strelec looks really good. He scored, I think, against Germany and during the international break as well. So he looks like a really high profile signing. They just look really good, and they've started the season really well. The momentum is there, and they've played some hard games. They've had some hard games, and there's not been a sort of easy run where they've played soft
No, it hasn't.
opponents. They've gone to Norwich, they've gone to Millwall, They played Swansea at home, which is not an easy game. Uh, there's also not an easy game either. So they've played some hard opponents, and they've done really by Sheffield United, who are a yet to parachute team.
Yeah,
We'll talk about that in a bit, but
yeah.
it, they're just good, aren't they? And I don't know about you, Michael, but I see them as kind of it would be something drastically bad, I think, for Middlesbrough to not make it into the top six now. Surely
You'd think so. I mean, obviously, there's what is it, 40 game? Is it? Yeah, it is game week 6, isn't it? So yeah, I'm, I'm quite excited about Middlesbrough. I think Rob Edwards, and I've said this time and time again. I think that a lot of people with Rob Edwards have focused on the fact that the last 6 months of Luton were abhorrently poor, which they were, but. I think there might have been a lot of mitigating circumstances behind that. I'm not saying he's not accountable for it, because of course he would be. He was the manager, but I think I said at the time that he was appointed, that's a better appointment than I think a lot of people are making it out to be. And early days again, but so far it is encouraging. And as you've said, they've played Sheffield United, who, yeah, okay, they've started really poorly, but at the start of the season, Borough fans would definitely have had their rights to say that's going to be a hard game, and it still should be a hard game. You had West Brom, of course, who they beat the other night, Norwich away, Millwall away in that run-in, Swansea no pushovers either. So you've got to take everything into account, really. And by the way, Preston, we're forgetting, Preston away, who beat Leicester and Ipswich at home, and they were behind twice, weren't they? They were behind, I think, in the 90th minute. They conceded in the 90th minute pretty much, and then got an equaliser in stoppage time. So I think there's a lot to love about Middlesbrough at the minute, and there's a lot to love about what Rob Edwards is doing. And obviously, one of the biggest things that there was criticism of Middlesbrough was the fact that since they sold Latte Lat in January, they haven't had, apart from Tommy Conway, anyone who's really going to constantly get goals for them. But now it's starting to look like you're having players chipping in left, right, and centre, and it's really that's a really good thing to be in, because you're not then solely relying on one individual to do it. One of the best bits of business they did in the summer, which I think I might have mentioned it before, keeping Hayden Hackney was massive. Morris, them two are performing brilliantly at the minute. As you mentioned, Callum Britton, big fan of him in the at championship level. Sturridge is obviously getting goals. You got Conway in there as well. Um, but yeah, so there's a lot. There's a really a lot to like about Middlesbrough, and I think it's about right that they have something to get excited about, because to put this into perspective, when Middlesbrough came down with Sunderland and Hull in the Premier League, Sunderland have been down again to League One 4 years, come back up, and then got back promoted ahead of them, which is quite poor from a Borough point of view. So I think when you look at it, yeah, I think Rob Edwards could not have dreamed of a better start than this, really. And I think, considering the fixtures he's had, I think it's been really, really good, and they deserve all the plaudits. To flip it on the other way, to look at West Brom, I think West Brom is it's weird because obviously it's back to back defeats now, Derby and Middlesbrough. But I think you've got to take into account, look, losing to Derby at home in the manner of it is disappointing, but that's the Championship. Anything can happen in that regard. And then I think losing away at Middlesbrough, I think it's not a disgrace for their season by any means, but they've shown enough for me so far to suggest that they will still be right in the picture for a top six.
they weren't completely dismantled in this game either, were they? They were
No, they
very
weren't.
much in it. It,
Didn't
it was a
disgrace
tight game.
themselves.
It was a tight game, and the second goal for Borough was really, really good, like really well
Yeah,
worked. So sometimes you just have to hold your hands up and go, they're in a really good moment. They're playing really well. That's a really good goal. We couldn't really have said or really done too much to stop that. So um, yeah, I mean, West Brom, you're happy that Hegbo has scored his first goal, I think, of
yeah,
the
true.
season, which is obviously the big money striker they've brought in. So that's a positive. And they didn't stop. They didn't stop. I think these are two pretty decent sides actually. I probably at the moment put Borough slightly ahead of West Brom, as the league table suggests. But yeah, certainly, uh, I think the Derby defeat is a little bit more concerning for Albion. But absolutely, this is not a disgrace in any form. I think this is a bit of a all right, fine, no real issues. It's not like we were battered, and there's a golfing class or anything. Just two good moments from two good players. So yeah, I don't think it's a massive issue for Albion. But they've got who've they got next? West Brom.
Let's have a quick check. I'll be able to find out. It's Leicester, funny enough.
Oh,
Leicester
that's
on Friday night.
oh yeah,
Leicester on
Friday night.
Friday night at the Hawthorns. So
Yeah. Oh my god, that is the next. I want to say 4 games for West Brom don't look very kind to them. If I'm being honest, got Leicester, and then they got Norwich away, Millwall away, and then Preston at home, which is not the kindest fixtures at the moment. But yeah, West Brom are a good team, and I think they'll eventually pick up uh, over the course of the season for sure.
Yeah, I would agree. I think they will. They'll pick back up again. I think there's too much quality in their team not to have done so, and I think right we get to forget Ryan Mason's still like I think this is his first job as a
Yeah,
proper manager. I know he had a caretaker spell. I think I can't remember was it Hull or Tottenham. I can't remember.
Tottenham.
Tottenham. Okay, I
He,
keep
he managed a cup final.
of course he did, didn't he? Yeah. So, no, but this is the first time he's the main man. So I think we do have to bear that in mind. But yeah, but if you look at the fixtures, to be honest, the way Norwich are going at home, I wouldn't bet against West Brom going there and winning because Norwich. We'll come on to Norwich in a bit, but Norwich cannot seem to get points at home. Let's see what Mason says. I think Target has done well for Middlesbrough as well. Yeah, I agree. I think obviously he was never going to start for Newcastle. I think at this point, considering where they want to be, so I think it's a really good, really solid signing for Borough. So yeah, not too much to be concerned about for West Brom at the minute. Obviously, challenging fixtures coming up, but they're still right in the mix. And obviously, we're still at the point in the season where the league's very very open. So of course, it will be. And Middlesbrough keep marching on at the top of the league. So let's get on to where should we go to next on the Saturday games. Tell you what, we probably do have to mention this because ignore my feelings towards this particular manager aside, but this game was about a return of a certain person. Sheffield United. So obviously Sheffield United have had Chris Wilder return midweek. I think it was earlier in the week, or certainly by the midpoint in the week. His first game, homecoming kind of, even though he's been out of the job for just a few months, has been a home game against Charlton Athletic. Now, if you're Sheffield United, especially with the start of the season they've had, this is a game you surely would have earmarked as a one they had to get a win from, really, or at the very bare minimum, get something from it. Now, um, to be fair, from what I did see, this looked a very, very tight affair. It did not look like it was a game where it looked kind of a smash and grab. I can't say that quickly. Smash and grab from Charlton Athletic, and we'll get on to Charlton because this is a great win for them, nonetheless. But let's talk about Sheffield United and Chris Wilder's return. So, what do you think about it?
As in Wilder's return.
Yep. Well, Wells returned, then the result.
Wow. Craziness, right? I mean, uh,
Blockbuster stuff, to be fair.
it's a big it's a big smug look, and Wilder, kind of mentioned it in his unveiling, third unveiling as United manager. He was like, "Oh, I'm not coming back here," with a smug look.
Yeah,
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are.
yeah, of course.
Uh, uh, and uh, yeah, it's just box office stuff. The return of the prodigal son and all of that. That it just didn't work out with Salas, and I think the writing was on the wall, especially after 5-0 disaster class against against Ipswich. I don't think Wilder changed anything in this game, though. I don't think he changed a single person, a single player, which is kind of interesting. I don't know. In fact, I can have a look right now whilst I ramble on about Chris Wilder's return to Bramall
I'll
Lane.
tell you, while you're looking, I think, I think in Chris Wilder, it's a weird one because I've obviously been quite critical of his team's performances last season. I do question if he's going to be good enough to try and get Sheffield United promoted. And I know that sounds really weird in the bottom of the league with 0 points, but that should be the conversation for Sheffield United. It's a year two parachute team. There's still enough quality in there, even if it's a little bit imbalanced at the moment. There's still enough there, man, for me to certainly be much better than 0 points after 6 games. Sellers
Uh,
might not have just been a good fit for them, but I think with Wilder, he's gonna. I still stand by that. I don't think Sheffield United go down. I'd be astonished if they go down with him at the helm. I think he'll get them enough points to keep them well away from trouble. But they need to get without sounding captain obvious here. They need to get points sooner rather than later. Of course. Sorry, go on.
I am talking out my backside. Chris Wilder made 3 changes. Not He did make changes. I was a little bit like, I'm not sure that's right. He did. He did bring in Harmer, Campbell, and Ogbene into the team. Sheffield United should not be bottom. They should not be
No, they
anywhere near the
shouldn't be.
bottom. They shouldn't be anywhere near the bottom six, let alone be bottom of the championship. Uh, this is a typical Charlton Nathan Jones away game where you sit in, you make it tight, you make it cagey, and they could have easily done this at Ashton Gate as well. By the way, they could have easily nicked it at the end, and arguments they probably could have done it as well. They had the chances to, but just find a way. And Isaac Alafe, who is also another big money striker signing. He was really good at Stockport last season in League One in their playoff campaign. Uh, he gets his first goal. Charlie Kalman is probably a little bit of a concern for Charlton at the moment because he's also another big money striker signing that hasn't quite worked out yet. He's not quite adapted to a championship football and does Charlton and the Nathan Jones style of play. So that probably is a little bit of a concern for them. But what a win! Who cares?
Of course.
What a win! Like going away to Bramall Lane and getting anything for a team who's probably expected to be just above, in around that bottom six area, maybe just above that. Uh, that is
Away at
solid,
the year two
absolutely.
parachute payment team. Yeah.
Exactly. Most teams, year two parachute team would take something in the championship. Would be like, if you give me 1-1 draw right now, I'd have absolutely taken it. Something like that, right? This is a great win. Absolutely brilliant 3 points. And important because Charlton have only won one other game so far. So it's a good confidence booster after a bit of a damp squib of an ending to that Millwall game where they should have probably won it. And then Kane Ramsey just had a moment there, didn't he? But yeah, what a win for Charlton. And they changed formation. James Bree came into the starting 11. I think it was Bell, Burke, and Lloyd Jones as the back three, which is super Nathan Jones and very, very, ex-Luton-y, but it's worked. And they nullified Matos and O'Hare and Harmer very well. Tyrese Campbell, by the way, not Sheffield United Tyrese Campbell, Sheffield United's Tyrese Campbell, Charlton's Tyrese Campbell. He looks really, really good. He looks really good. He was really good against Millwall. Would not be surprised if he, sort of has a breakout season. So yeah, what a win for Charlton. Sheffield United, who knows? Who knows? I think you can probably pretty safely assume that automatic promotion has been blown out of the water after this bad start because you cannot already lose 6 games and then still have an automatic promotion. So viable, sustainable. Unless they win, I don't know,
I was going to say,
30 out.
announce them winning 10 games in a row now.
Unless they win 30 out of their next 40 games or something stupid like that,
Yeah,
they're not
it's
gonna
going to be a
not
big
gonna
effort.
they're not gonna do it, are
Yeah.
they? Maybe even 31, 32 games. It might be that much. That might be the requirement, which is just super difficult to do. It might happen. It might happen, but it's super difficult to do, isn't it? So
For me, it depends on if the likes of Ipswich and Southampton and Leicester click properly. Because if they do, then they should have enough to be in that picture, really. And even if Middlesbrough keep up what they've done, to be fair, they deserve the respect to be in that conversation. So I think it depends entirely on that. I think, to be fair, quickly from Charlton's point of view, I think you are right. I think everything you said about Charlton's bang on. I think they obviously got Kaminsky in goal as well. He used to play for, I believe they signed from Luton, I think. So obviously that was it. And Kaminsky, we've got to remember, he performed well for Luton in the Premier League, I believe, which is weird considering how last season disastrously everything went.
it's a bit of a weird one though because I agree with you. I thought he was pretty good in the Premier League, but playing for Luton, where you'll face a lot of shots, so naturally you'll make more saves. You,
Well, yeah,
you know what I
kind of,
mean?
but I
You know what
suppose
I
to be
mean?
fair, he's going to have that for Charlton in the Championship, though, isn't he? Like, I think he
Yeah,
was.
no, yeah. Same with Victor Hansen at Stoke last
Yeah,
season, where he had to face a lot of shots, made a lot of saves, but
yeah, I know what you
one of
mean.
them
I
goalkeeper.
do, I do get
Yeah,
the point you're making. But to be fair, from Charlton's point of view, that was their first win since the opening day of the season, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure it was when they beat Watford. So that's really good for them, and it's good for them again. Like you said, I think Charlton, even if Ruben Sellers had still been managing the Sheffield United for this game, I do believe they still would have, a point would have still been a good result for them anyway. Um, but with Wilder coming back, I'm not gonna lie, I expected Sheffield United to win yesterday. I'm sure like most people probably did. Um, it's a new manager bounce thing. Well, new oldish one returning. You know what I mean? They've changed manager. Chris Wilder comes back, and the Sheffield United players, regardless of what I think, Sheffield United players clearly play for him and clearly want to play for him. So I think that's an encouraging one. So this was obviously going to be a trickier game than what, say, Ipswich would have found it under Sellers. I'm not saying that Sheffield United's players definitely weren't playing for Sellers, but I think this would have been a tougher test now. Well, maybe, you never know. But I think they're probably going to play more for Chris Wilder than they would Ruben Sellers, I'd imagine. So or certainly play more that Wilder's back, because I think they would have been absolutely they would have been gutted when he did get sacked. So the point I'm trying to get at in a long-winded way is that from Charlton's point of view, you stick in it, and if they got a 0-0, it would have been a good result. But to nick it right at the end, and especially as you've probably seen yourself on away days, and I've seen myself on away days, when you score a last-minute winner, it is special. So I think they absolutely would have. would have enjoyed that, and as they would have had every right to. So yeah, fair play for Charlton from their point of view. Really good result. Um, I'm looking at Sheffield United's next game, and I believe it's away at Oxford next week. In fact, I'm pretty confident it is. If you bear with me, I'll be able to tell you. September fixtures. Yes, it is away at the Kassam Stadium. Now, obviously, at your expense, unfortunately, Oxford did get their first win, so that's kind of a monkey off Oxford's back. It'd be interesting to see how Sheffield United get on in a game like that, even away from home. You'd need to probably win that to get your season started. Do you think? Do you? Okay, let me phrase that. I agree with you that I think top two is looking a distinct unlikelihood for Sheffield United. I would argue that if they get a competent run together, the playoffs is not beyond the realms of possibility for them. But they obviously need to have points to catch up on. But I think they are still capable of finishing in them for me.
Well, I think they're capable of putting together 2 points per game for the rest of the season, which is more than enough for the probably just you need I'd say about 75 for the playoffs.
I'd say so. I think that's about right.
So I'm just I'm definitely under 2 points per game. If I'm doing exact maths, as I whip out my calculator,
Well, we've got 40
uh,
games left. So 2 points per game with 40 games is
yeah,
80.
1.87, 1.88 points per game for the rest of the season, which I think this squad and this manager is definitely capable of. So yeah, I don't think um, sort of playoffs is out of the contention, out of the realms of possibility, and we might have, I don't know, depends how the tide is looking. If it's as low as last season, well, you won't need 75. You'll only need about 68, maybe 70, which again is even better. Yeah, I think playoffs is definitely on. This squad has got, as I said, a lot of quality in it, and once again, is in a massively false position. Should not be anywhere. Uh, should not be anywhere near the bottom six, bottom seven, in the
No,
championship.
I would even extend that to bottom half championship. To be honest, I think it should be. I would even say it probably should be at least top seven, top eight. And I know that obviously, I think the big thing is the fact I think Vinny Sues has proven to be a massive miss for Sheffield United. But I think that even if they don't have a midfielder in his mould at the moment on their books, if you at least get into January and into the January window and you're still in touch of the playoffs, Sheffield United as a parachute year two parachute team should have the resources to go out and get a Vinicius, almost not a level of Vinicius because that'll be a lot of money to replace, but like a level that's good enough to somewhat fill the hole that's left by his departure. But that's obviously you've got to get through the next. Yeah, Oxford's ground looks class when it's finished. Yeah. So yeah, we'll wait and see. But yeah, I agree with you. Sheffield United should not be any. I'd be staggered if Sheffield United are anywhere near this position. But obviously, the longer this goes on, as Ant did say, we said this about Luton last year. So we'll wait and see. It's going to be a fascinating one, especially with Wilder returning. It is going to be a very blockbuster, as we mentioned earlier. So let's move on to a few of the other games. So let's go from one Sheffield club to another one. One that got a fantastic 3 points, I've got to say. Portsmouth 0, Sheffield Wednesday 2. So let's say Barry Bannon's inevitable. let's just say that. The free kick he scored, sublime. Absolutely sublime.
Where was that going? Top left corner. Nope, it's right across. I love this sort of free kicks. Completely takes everyone out of the equation. Just completely fools everyone. It's absolutely brilliant. Only he knows what he's about to do, and Barry Bannon's quality. Yeah, 9.9 times out of 10 he's going to execute it. So yeah, what a free kick.
Yeah, I completely agree. If you haven't seen it, go and see it. It's really, really good. I think another thing to bear in mind as well that if I think remember Portsmouth again are no mugs either. I think that especially going to Fratton Park and winning. Okay, I know Norwich have done it this season. I believe Portsmouth beat Preston in their last home game. I want to say. So I think that's already set signals how good a result this is. On top of everything that is going on at Hillsborough at the moment, with Sheffield Wednesday, which we've gone over loads of times. We obviously hope that gets fixed and gets sorted soon for them, but we won't go over all ground again because we've done it enough times. It's kicking a dead horse at this point. Their second goal was interesting, however, when we had, now let's see if I can remember. Yeah, so it was Connor. Right, I'm going to get this wrong. Connor Shanezis. I've got
Connor Shaughnessy, I think. Yeah.
Shaughnessy. Okay, yeah, that sounds much better than what I tried to say. Shaughnessy. Yeah, I'm just going to have to say Connor there. But yeah, obviously there was a slip from him where I think it was an injury that he picked up. I think it might have been a tweak in his
He,
hamstring.
no, he tore his hamstring. He tore his hamstring.
Yeah, I thought it might have been. I wanted to make sure. Um, Hamstring tear. But then, of course, George Brown runs through and scores it. Now, you know, Portsmouth can probably have their frustrations with it, with the game not being stopped or whatever. But I think George Brown proved what, as a team, you have every right to do that. You have every right and to play to the whistle and to go and try and go and score a goal. And yeah, it's an interesting circumstance for them to get the second goal. But once you get that, you're in a 2-0 lead. It's usually quite difficult to overturn that as a team that goes 2-0 down. So I'm very, but I think for Sheffield Wednesday, you've got to give them massive credit for this. And although it says a lot how bad Sheffield United have been, if you'd said to me Sheffield Wednesday would get a league win before Sheffield United this season, at the start of the season, I think you would have had some crack cocaine of some description. So but you've got to mention, look, will it change their overall perception of the season? Likely not, unless they get a really good run going. But you got to hand it to them. Fair play to them for getting what is it, 4 points they're on now. Um, the only thing they need to do is start picking up points at Hillsborough. But it's easier said than done there. But yeah, what a win this is for them.
Yeah, what a win. As you said, Fratton Park, really difficult place to go. Pompey have not started well at Fratton. To be fair, they've not done.
No, they haven't,
Uh,
have they?
yeah,
Is it two
they've been
losses and a win at Fratton Park? Am I right?
yeah, which is not you'd expect from them. They have been better away from home, to be fair, so that kind of balances out. But still, not a great start upon for Pompey at Fratton. They didn't. It didn't look like they created much, did they? Against Wednesday, so that will be a concern, and it's a bit of a momentum killer because there was a really good performance and a really good point at Southampton, and I thought they were
Yeah,
really good at Southampton as well. So
agreed.
that's a bit of a kick in the teeth, that especially in Sheffield Wednesday, who again at home you're probably looking at that as a marking that as a 3 points as a win. So I'm not saying it's not a massive sort of, I'd say, alarm bells for Pompey or anything. I still think they're a very good side. It's just like one of those games in the Championship where it can happen. But yeah, that's a disappointing result. But for Wednesday, great win. And if they keep surprising teams and just win, these random games away from home, just the odd game away from home, and be relatively, don't be fragile at Hillsborough. They've got a chance if they're lucky with injuries, with other stuff. They've got a chance. They've got a chance. So um, I think they're a point off safety at the moment, Wednesday. So um,
Correct. Yes, they are.
I think they would have taken that after 6 games for sure. So uh, if that happens, I don't know, 10 games later, and we're still talking about Sheffield Wednesday being in the conversation for safety, you give them a chance, because by then they must have shown something that these guys, that they can survive. They must have won enough games, must have picked up enough points. So yeah, very very promising win for Wednesday. Very important first win as well. But for Pompey, just no alarm bells needed. Just a little bit of a reality check and a bit of a right. Got to be able to beat teams like Sheffield Wednesday at home.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't think it's a massive concern for Pompey.
No, I don't think so. I think they'll have more than enough about them to be all right this season. But like you said, it's the Championship. Any result can pretty much happen on any given day. Let's go over a couple of lunchtime kickoffs. We'll try and save Leicester Coventry for the end because we're going to try and see if we can get Ant on if he's not too hungover. If he is, then obviously we can talk about this because I did watch the whole game. But let's start at St Andrews. If you're going to leave it late to get a winner, not better time than the 94th minute. Birmingham beat Swansea in one of the early kickoffs, and it was, I believe that. Let's quickly talk about the Swansea disallowed goal, which was one that, from what I'm seeing from the match report here, was seemingly incorrectly offside, to quote BBC's report. So, from what you saw of it, which I'm guessing was one of the EFL highlights, what did you think of it, of that decision to disallow it? from Popotnik.
Really tight call, isn't it? I'm probably erring on the side of onside rather than
Mm.
offside. Um, I don't know. That's a bit of a it's a bit of a it's a bit of a 50-50 that. Yeah, VAR. You need to draw
Yeah,
the lines, all that good stuff. So yeah, I think Swansea can feel a little bit hard done to on that. If you ignore that for a second, just look at the balance of play. It's probably deserved Blues win. I think if you look at the stats, look at the chances the Blues created. Um, well, we've been talking about that, haven't we? We've been talking about, they've had all the ball, they've had all the control, all the possession. Got to be able to turn that into chance. I think it was 2 shots on target in the past 3 games before this one. So it's a it's a lot more of an attacking product, a lot more of an end product. It's just got to be finished off now. And it took, Lyndon Dykes to score that late on. But yeah, great win, a much deserved win for Birmingham as well, and it gets them back on the road, I guess, and back on track for a little. Hopefully for them, and now a nice winning run.
And we've got to mention this was Patrick Roberts' first game at St Andrews, I believe, which obviously I know quite a bit about because he was on loan from my club Sunderland. So I've got to be fair to Roberts. That is a cracking cross. That cross from Roberts is brilliant, and obviously Lyndon Dykes is in the right place at the right time to head it in. And of course, it's one of those wins that can give you confidence and momentum. Not saying Birmingham never had it, of course, because they have done, and they are going to. And I still think Birmingham will be right up there challenging for the playoff places to really kind of disrupt it, really. So I think we'll wait and see how games and future games pan out for them. But yeah, no, very important win for Birmingham. And as for Swansea, look, I think I've said before, St Andrews will actually be quite a tough place to go. Even regardless, I mean, if you look at Ipswich on the opening day, and I know Ipswich haven't started great, but Ipswich got battered at Birmingham, and it was only really a contentious penalty at the end, or debatably contentious penalty, that got them a point. So I think losing at Birmingham, obviously the manner in which it happened will be frustrating, of course, but losing at Birmingham, I don't think will be any big disgrace by any means. We'll move on to the next one. So let's move on to the game at I'm just going to say Loftus Road. I don't know if it's called the Kingdom Prince Foundation Stadium or whatever it's called now, but Loftus Road. QPR beat Stoke, who've obviously beat the team who are still, I believe, second in Stoke City. Yeah. So, yeah, is it Harvey Vale scored for them? I'm not. Yeah, Harvey
Yeah,
Vale. So,
yeah,
yeah, first championship goal. So 3 successive wins for QPR. So what do we
yeah.
make of
What a,
them
what
here?
what a reaction after that 7-1 at Coventry.
Yeah.
So they've done really well, and they've beaten who they've been. They've been Charlton, they've been Wrexham, and they've been Stoke. So uh, Charlton, notoriously hard to score against. Wrexham away from home at the racecourse. Yeah, they're leaking goals, but still that's an impressive win. And then Stoke, who were second in the league. So this is a really good, nice little run from QPR. They got a little bit fortunate that Million Manhoff literally missed a header on the goal line, pretty much like 3 yards out, and he managed somehow to head it over the bar when it was again Sorba Thomas with a brilliant ball in. What cracking signing he's been. Um, but yeah, who cares? What a finish from Harvey Vale. Literally comes to him first time and then bends it into that far corner, and you can see as he hits it, the QPR fans behind that goal just starting to stand up, and they all start standing up in unison. It's a great sight. Uh, so yeah, brilliant win for QPR. I think Stoke will be a bit disappointed they didn't manage to keep a clean sheet and just sort of don't win but don't lose on the road. That sort of attitude that Mark Robins would have instilled into them. That I think they'd be a little bit angry that didn't happen. Um, but yeah, what a win for Rangers and great response. Now they're on a little winning run. They've got a 3-game winning run themselves. So yeah, fantastic.
Well, I was going to say, like you said, when we were talking about the response from the 7-1 loss against Coventry, and what's fascinating is that, again, the Championship's that crazy a league that 3 wins later, all of a sudden, and QPR would have gone from probably a not a great start, shall we say, or a pretty poor one, to suddenly just outside the playoffs. So that just shows that if anything shows how crazy this league is, then that's it. But yes, from what it kept on, what it did see, it looked like it was a day. It looked like it was pretty much a deserved win for QPR from what I'm seeing here, and from what I believe the commentator said on the EFL highlights show. So I think that's going to be really encouraging, especially when you beat a team that's had a tremendous start to the season in Stoke. And look, for Stoke, as you've said, Mark Robbins has tried to instill this sort of be hard and resolute and hard to beat um, sort of side to them. But if you look at it this way, like if you'd said to Stoke, okay, look, you've lost what two, you've lost away at QPR, but you're second after 6 games. Considering what they've had to put up with in recent times, I think they would probably have taken that. So, and we've got to remember, I mean, and I know you won't be thankful for this, but obviously with you lot, with your result today, with Stoke's result, I think Middlesbrough will be licking their lips. It's almost as perfect a weekend for them as they could have imagined. Leicester and Coventry drawn against each other as well. So, that's going to be very encouraging stuff for them. So I tell you what, since as Ant says he's too hungover to come on, let's get through the last of lunchtime kickoffs because I've just mentioned it. So let's have it pretend that was not intentional, or pretend that was intentional at all. Leicester nil, Coventry nil. I don't know how much of this game you saw because I believe the Merseyside derby was on at the same time. So, but
Yeah.
given Ant's less than fond feelings towards Coventry City, I thought this actually would be quite a funny game to watch. Everyone, and if anyone who if you picked the Merseyside derby, you probably picked a better game than I did and to watch. But with this game, I feel like it was going. I think it was always going to be a tight one. I'm not even going to put that in. I'm not even going to show that on screen. And so nice try. Yeah, but anyway, look, Leicester nil, Coventry nil. I think from what I saw, and you might have seen the EFL highlights based on this, but obviously as the whole game as a spectacle, it was not a classic by any means, but it was. For starters, you've got to say for Coventry, it's a very solid point. Away at Leicester, it's a very good point. I did feel like Leicester created the better of the chances across the whole game, but not enough to the point where Coventry were deserving to lose. And I think Coventry, and actually there were some good passages of play from both teams there. And I think what can be encouraging from Frank Lampard and from Coventry's point of view, again, and I've mentioned this before, when they've had the habit of starting very slowly, they've actually started quite well. I think they're one of the few teams left that's unbeaten, and I think they've got what is it? Now I need to get this right. I think it might be 2 wins and 4 draws. Yes, so obviously last week, for example, draws like Norwich at home, for example, is one where they're probably more disappointed not to end up winning, especially considering how much they battered Norwich continually and got a point at the very end. A point away at Leicester is a good result, by any stretch of the imagination. So I would say it's a very encouraging one. For Leicester, it sort of keeps it ticking over. I want to say, I think it still keeps them and Coventry right above each other. And again, like I've said, Leicester 1 point off second, Coventry 2 points off second. As I've said, the league's still very congested at the moment. So, it's a result that I think neither team will, especially Coventry, will be too dissatisfied with. I mean, if you look at the XG stats from this game, 0.97 for Leicester and 0.4 for Coventry. So I think that in terms of fantastic chances, I think Coventry's best one, I think, was one from Hadji Wright when he heads, I think it's either shoots just wide or heads the ball just wide. So he has an effort that goes just wide of the post. And I'm trying to remember what there was one for Leicester. I think there was a couple of decent efforts, close efforts on target that were kind of straight at Carl Rushworth, who, by the way, Carl Rushworth, I think, is proven to be a very good signing for Coventry on loan from Brighton. I was impressed. Even though Leicester didn't have as many great goal-scoring chances, I do believe that Rushworth is a really good signing for them. Let's have right. I'm going to put this on there just for the first comment. Mavadidi missed an absolute sitter. Is what it is. Move on to Friday with West Brom. Right, well, not read the end bit there, because I know what Ant's like. So, yeah, let's just say Ant kind of, as guys know, friend of the channel, Ant, basically a big Leicester fan, does not like Coventry, say the least. He kind of went from feeling nervous. Yeah, I'm trying to be diplomatic towards Coventry City fans, any of them who are happen to be watching this. But either way, yeah, I think Ant kind of went from he's nervous to bring it on to I hate this lot to the unwashed and all the other emotions that a derby day can bring you. So, but yeah, I don't know what you think. I think Leicester will be obviously disappointed, of course, not to win at home against them, but I don't think it's a bad point for either team. Well, it's not a bad point for Leicester it's not the end of the world for Leicester, but it's a really good point for Coventry, I think.
Well, you watched the game, so I think your assessment and your reflection is probably more valid than mine. But on the face of it, good away point. A year one parachute team for Cov and Leicester. It's a point against a team who probably be in the top 6, if not very, very close. Maybe even in the top 2 conversation.
I'd say, yeah.
Maybe even in the top 2, top 4 conversation. So yeah, these guys are no mugs, absolutely no mugs, and one of the best teams in the division, Coventry. So I don't think I think both sides can probably shake their hands on it, and go, yep, fine, no problems, and see you in the running, probably, yeah.
Ant's not going to say that to Coventry fans, mind. But yeah, no, I totally get where you're coming from. So yeah, obviously there's only so much you can talk about with a nil-nil. But to be fair, it wasn't for a nil-nil. I've seen a lot worse nil-nils than that. Put it that way. There was at least the game was played at a pretty fast pace, actually. So we shall see. Let's get on to a pretty weird, well, non-result in the end at Ewood Park, which was obviously Blackburn beating Ipswich. So early in the second half, Jacob Greaves gets sent off for a last man offence. Todd Cantwell, ex-Norwich player as well, ends up scoring against them from the penalty spot. But then the result pretty much is null and void. So there's not really much we can talk about it, really. But obviously, all I'll say is if you've seen the state of the pitch by the time the game was abandoned, it's not a surprise. It was abandoned. The ball was literally like stuck to the watery slide of grass. So I don't know there's really much we can really read into this because the game will be replayed at some point. But
It
Adam,
just it just adds a fixture, doesn't it? And
pretty much.
we're sort of going into the period where midweeks are starting. Pretty much after this international break, that's all midweeks
I think
and
there's a
stuff
midweek
will.
leading up to the international break, isn't there? And I think after
There
that,
is, yeah.
it goes, yeah, goes regularly.
Yeah, so this is just that it's just inconvenient for both Blackburn and for Ipswich, particularly for both sides really. But if
I
Ipswich are
think
going to be
Ipswich
in a
should be quite
promotion,
relieved it got called off, mind.
yeah, no, I yes, because they're down 10 and stuff like that, and it'll be also interesting what happens in returns to what happens in the replay. Do they play? Do they start at 80 minutes? Do they start from this? Do they do a complete replay? Do Ipswich start the game with 10? God,
That's it, though.
who
What happens
knows?
with I think what happens with Jacob Greaves then? Does he play this
Yeah,
fixture or
yeah.
not? Because if the game was abandoned, then surely the red card shouldn't count. But I don't know. Yeah, Ants just said the same thing. Do they replay the entire game or just 10 minutes? I don't think they're going to just play 10. I don't think they'll just kick off for 10 minutes and then have people. No, I think the entire game will get replayed. But yeah, it's a shame from a Blackburn point of view. Of course, it would be a shame for them. That would have been a brilliant win for them if they'd managed to. If the game had been completed against again, we say the praise a lot a year one parachute team, but yeah, I think I said Ipswich will be significantly happier with that, but there's not really much more we can sort of talk into it really. What we can talk about is
The Ipswich fans won't be mind.
no, Ipswich will be buzzing with that probably. But
Yeah,
which
I meant the Ipswich fans are going to have to go up to Blackburn again,
oh well, yeah. Yeah, I
travel
was
up
going to
there
say
again.
down, but yeah, I keep thinking because in the northeast everywhere's down from here. So okay, right. Well, what we can talk about is Alfie Devine scoring if I remember correctly, I think it was an absolutely fantastic strike away
It's a
at Derby.
divine strike.
But yeah, I should have had the clip from Peter Griffin when he does that. But yeah, okay, fine. Yes, I'll use it. Divine strike. Yeah, I can't believe I didn't. Oh, here we go. Anne's getting involved in this now. A divine goal. Yeah, the
Someone had
pun
to steal it. Someone had to steal my joke.
pretty much. If you typed that a second earlier, Ant, you could have literally said from did it quickly on the Blackburn Ipswich. Let's look at Ant's comment here. Should do golden goal for a laugh. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, Alfie Devine, what a finish and a solid win for Preston away at Derby. Considering Derby are starting to get their injured players back for the most part, and obviously they were off the back of a really good win away at West Brom last week. But again, it shows for Derby, it shows the nature of the Championship. You can win away at West Brom, but lose at home to Preston. But for Preston, I think Preston are taking along nicely. To be fair,
In the top six now, aren't they? So
yeah.
these guys are again no mugs. Heck, he's got them just just really good, aren't they? So no surprise, really. Maybe a little bit surprised they went there and won, but a tight game. Eustace against Hecky. It's going to be that sort of tight cage affair, and the weather conditions weren't great at Pride Park. I mean, you just have to look at the state of the pitch. To be honest, it wasn't particularly endearing. So what a win! That sort of strike deserves to win any game. So what a win! And Preston, they've got a couple of really good loan players now, haven't they? They've got Alfie Devine and they've got Lewis Dobbin, who Dobbin scored a worldie against Borough. Devine scored a worldie here. So they went early in their recruitment and they signed a load of players quite early. Preston. So these guys look really competitive, and I'm also starting to regret putting them in the bottom three as well. So,
Yeah, so am I.
uh,
I must admit.
so yeah, again, it sort of parlays into the relegation conversation of who actually looks like they're in trouble, because we've had written more evidence this week of teams like going, oh, they won't be in trouble. They've just gone there and won, or they've just beaten them lot. I think it's brilliant. It makes it incredibly competitive. Makes it incredibly sort of up in the air, and the tension and the drama. But what a win for Preston, and they're taking along nicely. I agree with you, Michael.
Yeah, and I think we mention it to quickly mention on Derby County because again, I think with John Eustace, we would probably expect them to still be. I mean, they're a bit lower than I thought they would be at the start, but again, when you caveat the injuries and the extent of them which they had in the first month of the season, I think it's not as much of a surprise they are where they are at the minute. But I do expect them to improve. But I agree with you on your point about that it adds all the more context to play teams we thought we were going to struggle that are actually doing reasonably well, and it makes a question of who is going to be in the bottom three. Well, if results like yesterday are anything to go by, to move on to our next game, Hull City, who I did put in the bottom three, are also probably not going to be there because yet again, a parachute payment team has been beaten. So Hull, and to be fair, from what I heard, apparently it was against the. I think there were patches of this game where they had to really, really dig in. But and again, like I've said a few times for a few teams, what a result for them. So Hull beat Southampton 3-1 at the KCOM Stadium. And this feels quite significant for me in many ways because one, it's beating a parachute team, and two, it's winning a game at home, which Hull, I think, had the worst home record last season. If not, it was one of the worst. I'm sure it was. They did a much better away than they did at the KCOM, if I'm memory serves me correctly on that. We had Kyle Joseph, John Lundstrom, and Ollie McBurney, of course, putting Hull in a position I imagine their fans would never have dreamed of, and being 3-0 up against Southampton. Of course, Adam Armstrong scores a goal right at the end, and we'll get on to Southampton in a minute,
Mm,
but the story's got to be about Hull here. Like, what a
yeah,
result for them.
what a win. And questions about Will Still potentially as well. This is uh, the McBurney goal is so easy, set piece straight from a set piece, so easy. Thing is, the first goal is also pretty. Sorry, my voice is gone.
No,
The
it's fine.
first goal, the first goal is also pretty terrible defending from Saints, and yeah, it's not been good. It's not been good from them so far. I agree, or I get the consensus of they'll take a little bit of time to get going. They've sold a lot of players. They've brought in quite a lot of players. I think they've spent more than £50 million this summer. Obviously, they've
Oh, of
sort
course,
of
they've obviously made a lot of money here, but they've still
yeah
spent that
missed
money.
them. Fernandez, Suleiman, Dibbling, all that, etc. That's fine, no worries. But that'll take a little bit of time. Azaz hasn't quite got going. Fellows hasn't quite got
Yeah.
going. That midfield looks a little bit sort of off in my opinion. Obviously, great players. It's just about how they work together. Um, so yeah, a little bit of concern for Southampton, and they've failed to beat Pompey at home. Obviously, that's a derby game, so you can kind of a little bit of excuse for that, the emotional side of things. But this is not a good result, and they were sort of handsomely beaten by Hull as well. So not a good result for Will Still, and he needs to get things going quickly because if in another 5, 6, 7 games time, Southampton are 14th or just meandering in mid-table, he'll probably be gone. He'll probably be gone. So he needs to get things moving.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that. Like I said, as good a result it is for Hull, and they do deserve all the credit for this. So I genuinely think there are questions that have got to be asked of Will Still here, and I do get it. Look, there is still the caveat is I can understand maybe the idea that they are trying to transition from the way Russell Martin had them set up. Disastrously had them set up in the Premier League, I might add. So on top of having to adjust to a new style of play, confidence would have took a massive hit there from players who were there last season. But I believe what Will Still has got is still good enough to be better than what is it, 6 points from the first 6 games for a year one parachute team. But I think it's actually quite fascinating to look at because now we've discussed all of them. It's funny how the year one the parachute teams. Well, Leicester probably the exception to this, but the other parachute teams have started incredibly poorly in the way that I thought that they would do. Now, obviously, Ipswich's game got abandoned, so say if they won that, then obviously that skews things a little bit. There is still time for that, but I don't know what you think. What do you think about the fact that Ipswich, Southampton, and especially Sheffield United, again, year one, year two, parachute team. I said at the start of the season that this lot should be comfortably the top four. Well, looks like shows how much I know about football. But what do you make of that? Because Leicester's the only one out of the parachute teams that started respectable, I think.
And we still might see a points reduction with Leicester
Yeah,
as
and
well.
that's
So
another thing as well. Yeah,
who knows? I don't know what to make of it. I'm kind of concerned about Southampton. But saying that, I was also concerned about Southampton 2 years ago under Russell Martin, where I was like, this might not be working. But then they went on a long and beaten run. They just suddenly
yeah.
clicked and gone. I think it was fourth in the end and nearly got into had a real conversation about top two. Ipswich, I am sort of, I don't know. I'm also a little bit sort of just waiting for things to click, probably a little bit
Ipswich is the
more.
one that I'm least concerned about with the three of them. Put it that way.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I think Sheffield United, we've got to a point where they've had such a bad start that you're just looking for something in terms of
Yeah,
you're just looking for like
anything to improve.
a winning run, 3 wins out of four, 4 wins out of five, something like that, just to get things going again, get things moving again. Because we know Chris Wilder's the right manager. We know Kieran McKenna's the right manager for the respective clubs. We're still unsure about Will Still, but it just needs a little bit of, bit of an oomph, bit of a kick up the backside. And I thought that win for Ipswich against Sheffield United would be that sort of catalyst to go and make things happen for Ipswich, but that's not quite happened for Town. So again, I'd agree. Of Southampton, Ipswich, and Sheffield United, I'm probably the least concerned about Ipswich. I'm probably the most concerned. Weirdly, I'd probably be the most concerned about Southampton more than Sheffield United because I think Sheffield United will come good eventually because Chris Wilder's back
Yeah,
and they've
well,
made
the
that
suits, yeah.
managerial.
So yeah, they will. You would expect them to get results.
Yeah, whereas Will Still, I'm still a little bit like, you know, show me something, show me something, show me a little bit of a winning run, show me a pattern of play, something like that. So yeah, I'm probably most concerned about Saints right now. Weirdly enough,
Well, no, I think that's probably fair because at least with Kieran McKenna and Chris Wilder, we have a sample size to know what that they will probably suit the championship and should do better and will probably get results in the long run that will improve their teams, of course. Whereas with Southampton with Will Still, it is an unknown quantity because he's what's he managed like Rennes? No, it's not Rennes. Reims, I think it is. Um,
Lawns.
Lawns, exactly. So you've managed them. Don't get me wrong; they're respectable enough jobs in France for someone who's like not grown up playing football, apart from Football Manager, obviously. But joking aside, like it's obviously respectable there, but it doesn't always translate to a league like the Championship. And I've said before that a Championship is a very cutthroat division. It's actually quite a big league as well. Even if you take into account, look, obviously we know how big a league the Premier League is and everything to go with it, but Sheffield, the Championship is still a big enough league to have genuine conversations about how teams are doing. So yeah, Southampton's the one that I'm probably most concerned about out of the lot of them. I still think Southampton will improve. It depends if they're going to adjust from how Will still wants them to play to how they've been so accustomed to how Russell Martin was setting them up over the last couple of seasons. So that could be a factor, to be fair. But I agree with you. I am probably the most concerned about Southampton and how they have started. Can't remember. I think what was it? Um, they beat, what was it, Wrexham, I think, in the last minute when I thought Wrexham were actually unlucky to come away with nothing. Then they've obviously had a couple of draws since then. I think they drew against Watford away. Okay, gone behind twice. Not the worst point in the world. No, hang on, did they go ahead twice? No, I'm talking rubbish. I'm talking out my back. So I'm sure they went ahead twice at Watford. Obviously lost to Hull as well. They lost at home to Stoke. Now, on paper, you could say that doesn't look the worst result in the world, but I think Stoke were down to 10 men when they were 1-0 down, Southampton, and went 2-0 down against 10 men. So that's pretty poor from their point of view. So, yeah, I think with Southampton, I mean, like I said, I'm with you. I think Sheffield United will eventually improve under Wilder enough to get promoted. Time will tell. The start suggests probably not, but there is another 40 games to go. Ipswich, I'm with you. I think things will start to click eventually for them. But obviously, it's one thing me saying that it needs to actually happen, but we'll see. And Southampton is the one that I'm probably the most concerned about the three. It's not really worried for them in terms of going down or anything. But again, I think if after a dozen games or another half a dozen games time, if they still haven't improved, then I think there's a real conversation to be had about how. If, and when you are right, I think if Will still doesn't improve, there is every chance he could be gone because that is the nature of this league. Um,
His expectation is 80 points at a minimum.
yeah, which it should be. One, because of the
Which
reputation that apparently he's got, but two,
mm,
because it's a year one parachute team. You should be looking at these days now. There is such a fine. You and Carl talked about this extensively last week. If anyone wants to watch it, go watch the last half an hour of last week's show where we talked about the financial disparity between parachute and non-parachute teams and such. But yeah, it's got to the point where if you're a year one parachute team, unless things are so bad behind the scenes, then you'd be expected to be right up there challenging, of course. So we'll see. Let's go on to the last of Saturday's results before we obviously for you unfortunately have to talk about your boys. But let's talk. So Norwich, I can't work these guys out. They are mint away from home, but at home they are absolutely shocking. That's three straight losses at Carrow Road this season. They in the league they lost to Millwall on the opening day. They lost to Middlesbrough. Um, and I believe Norwich. To be fair, Norwich, I think they went down to 10 men. I believe in that game as well. So obviously, slight caveat there. I think I could be wrong on that one. And then this game is probably the worst of the three. Yeah, if you look and correct me if I'm wrong on that. But yeah, Norwich 2, Wrexham 3. Yeah, I can't work out. As I'm sure you'll find that interesting with the Liam Manning narrative. I cannot work Norwich City out.
no, neither can I. No, that's a lie. I can. Liam Manning always starts slowly with his team. Started slowly at Bristol City. Started slowly, sort of teetered along Oxford. Um, I don't think this is a massive surprise in terms of what you expect from them. Obviously, the expectation at Norwich is high, and okay, again, 14th place would be a gross underachievement for Norwich. But I think the concern for Norwich fans and why it suddenly went so toxic at Carrow Road after, I don't know if you listened to the boos after the third goal went in. I mean, it was
Yes, I
staggering.
did.
It was really staggering. I mean, um, it's quite astounding to hear and listen, actually. Can't imagine what it would have been like actually being in at Carrow Road at that point. So I think that's the performance is probably the more of the concern rather than it's not like they're trying to do something and it's not quite working. Where it's like they'll probably come good.
Yeah,
They don't really know what's going on. He's already changed formations. I'm not seeing Liam Manning. I've seen Liam Manning change formations midway through a season. I've not seen him do it this early on. That's and his comments after the game. What do I expect from I listened to Liam Manning interviews for probably a year and a half, right? And it was always the same things. It was always behaviours, time on the grass. It was always the same phrases. It was always very calm, very composed, praising his players. Sort of brushing it up and putting a nice gloss over it. He fully just sort of lost it, really. Ketz said that he feels like his players let him down. They're not doing the basics right, and basics and the principles for Liam Manning are run hard, work hard, press. Defend your box, stuff like that. It feels like the players are not doing that, and that's probably the biggest concern for Norwich. If these players don't listen to Liam Manning or are not taking into account what Liam Manning wants from his group of players, what good is it having? What good is it having Liam Manning as your head coach? What good is it having Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp
yeah,
or Mikel Arteta as your head coach? It doesn't really matter because it can't take on instructions, can't take on the principles, can't take on what makes Liam Manning team a Liam Manning team. Well, what's the point? He also said that he feels like the team at the moment is not a reflection of him as a character or just him as a person. Um, which again, I don't think I ever heard something like that at Bristol City, not even vaguely close. So yeah, I think he's probably now the most under pressure manager in the Championship potentially, which might be maybe will still. But Parkinson has relieved a lot of pressure on him by winning this game. But yeah, Norwich really concerning. And once again, see, remember how Bristol City were really good at home last season under Manning. Really good, really hard to beat. And even when we didn't win games, we're normally in control of it and just didn't find a way to lose it.
Yeah.
They're not even doing that. Being really open, and did 30 odd shots at Coventry. Christ. And without Vladan Kovacevic, the goalkeeper, this could have been more than the 3 goals that Wrexham scored. So yeah, very concerning for Norwich actually. Very concerning, and concerning for Liam Manning as well, who I still very much uh, like. I think he's a great manager, and I still think he's one of the best managers in the division. But he's got to get things moving quickly. You can't have a little bit of a slow, getting to know you honeymoon period. It's got to be let's get on with it, and that's probably the message he's probably got from the higher ups at Norwich as well. Of we had the transitional period last season under Johannesov Torup.
Yeah,
We
now
want
you want to
results.
click on and do something, don't you?
Want results now, and that's probably why Norwich fans have just turned a little bit, and that's probably why Manning's under a little bit of pressure. But talk about what a great win it is for Wrexham.
Of course it is, yeah. I mean, like I said, I think if you look at it, Carrow Road, well, okay, maybe not this season, but in general, Carrow Road should be a really tough place for a lot of opposition teams to go, of course. And I think from Wrexham's point of view, the fact that we're 1-0 down and turned it around, I think is a promising thing. I still have my doubts long term about Phil Parkinson being good enough for what Wrexham will undoubtedly want to do. But and that's fair enough. But at the same time, you can't take this win away from them. They did try their hardest to mess it up at the end when they were 3-1 up, and then obviously I think there was a mistake that led to Norwich's second goal. And I think it was obviously it was nervy times at the end, but for them, it's really important for them to have got something out of this game, to have won it, and especially from 1-0 down at half time, of course. And yeah, from Norwich's point of view, now I could be wrong here, but I believe that since they got relegated in 2022 from the Premier League, the first season, I believe they finished 13th. I could be wrong on these exact. I
Yeah,
could be wrong on
that
these
was
exact
yeah.
positions. I think it was 13th, then 6th the following year under David Wagner, which okay, steady, serviceable enough. Then last season, I believe, was 14th. I want to say.
Fifth, 14th or 15th, something like that. Yeah.
Something like that, yeah. But either way, it was it's bottom half, 6th, bottom half, and now at the minute they're obviously again 40 games to go, as I've said before. But I am of the impression I think that we need to start seeing something from Norwich, and I think this was a game that, from Norwich's point of view, I'd recommend listening to the excellent Talk Norwich City podcast and from Chris and Jack Reeve, and they were saying this is a game they need to be highlighting as a game that they need to be winning. Not should be, because no team's got no God-given right to win any game, but it is a game that they needed to get something out of. And the fact they've lost it, their home form is really worrying. That's 3 straight losses at Carrow Road. And I think that it is, and I believe they've conceded 7 goals in 3 home games now. Twice against Millwall, twice against Borough, and 3 times yesterday. So that's getting concerning. And like you said, last week at Coventry, although the isolation appointed Coventry is solid, but like you said, they faced in the odd 30 odd shots. It wasn't like literally sitting back. It was literally standing back against the last wall possible while everyone comes at you constantly. It was literally attack versus defense all game. So yeah, I do think again I am with you on Liam Manning. I do really rate him at championship level, and I do think this will get better. But obviously, as with Norwich fans, they probably have every right to ask at what point is this going to get better. We need to start seeing more of a more pressure to pulls towards the top 6, because for Norwich in this division they should be among the top 6 of the championship. So I think it's a perfectly reasonable expectation for them. But and you look at the next 4 games as well; they don't get easier. I guess you were just to mention that, but it was, if I'm right, I think it's Stoke away, West Brom at home, the East Anglian derby, which I'm quite looking forward to as a spectacle. But yeah, it's especially with a certain Marcelino Nunez. And then obviously after that, I believe it's your boys, isn't it? Bristol City at Carrow Road. So we'll get on to you in a minute. But yeah, I get him. But it would not shock me in the slightest if Norwich went and won at Stoke on Saturday, because that again is the championship. You cannot go and call
Tight 1-0 Liam Manning masterclass against
pretty
Whitehall.
much, yeah. And it'll be
Yeah.
one where even if Liam Manning doesn't win either of the next 2, he'll still probably find a way to go and beat Ipswich because Norwich always get the better of Ipswich in that fixture. So, and
Yeah.
and obviously it's going to be the Marcelino Nunes narrative, isn't it? So I'm looking forward as a neutral. I'm really looking forward to that. But look, we'll see. But Norwich need to start clicking soon enough. And if they don't, then Liam Manning could be another one who could maybe find himself um, down the job centre in the next few months. I don't think he will be. I think there will come, not initially. I think there is enough faith in him from the board that they will want to stick with him because they paid compensation for him, didn't they? So,
Him and his staff, I think, were
Kosher
about
stuff,
2 million.
absolutely. So, okay then. But obviously, they were apparently invested in the Johannes Hoth Torup project last year, and of course he was out of a job by the end of it. So these decisions talk. Right, let's go on to the bit that I think you were probably
Right, so
dreading.
that's the championship review
Right,
done,
that's
everybody.
it.
Thank you
Yeah,
very
well,
much for watching.
we'll just
No
quickly
worries.
preview Millwall Watford and then just leave it at that. But yeah, go on then. Now, obviously, for those who don't know, I was at the Sunderland Aston Villa game today, and then I saw your result coming out of the ground. And I was like, wait, what? But again, as you're probably going to say, this is Bristol City. This is the Championship. But correct me if I am wrong.
I was in the ground watching it, and I went, "Yeah, what? That's about right." Uh, oh, what just horrible, wasn't it?
The
Where do
opposite
I
of
start?
perfect, just perfect. What more can you ask for?
What more can I ask for? Decent performance at home would be nice. I'm joking.
Yeah.
No, yeah, what a mess. Fair play to Oxford. They deserved the win. They were the better team. Uh, they showed more quality in the final third. Uh, I was surprised at how good they were going forward, if I'm being brutally honest. But three set pieces, and oh my goodness, the what is it? Referee. Oh my god. This is John Brooks, by the way. And look, I never normally criticise referees on my channel or whenever Bristol City play. This is John Brooks, who took charge of the Carabao Cup final last season between Newcastle and Liverpool.
I already don't
How
like him.
how this man is managing Premier League games is absolutely beyond me.
Is this a guy who's managing the refs in the Prem and has got dropped down to the Championship for this game?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Because they're the worst ones I find in the
I've,
Championship, personally.
I've I've got I can check what his last Premier League game was.
Yeah, well, I
Whilst
mean,
whilst you talk,
well,
I'll
okay
check.
then, right. So I think, but I'll talk about the Oxford side of things before you get into the Bristol City. Obviously, with Oxford, it's been a tough start of the season. It's been not the easiest of summers, I believe, for them. With and obviously to an extent, I get that there is obviously budgetary things. They're not going to be able to attract certain players the same way that a lot of the Championship, other clubs in the Championship will be. Gary Rowett for me is the biggest cause for optimism I've got for Oxford, and he is the reason that I put them to stay up. If I'm fair to them, the last two games, they've had two encouraging results. I know Leicester were down to 10 men, so you can obviously throw that caveat into there. But I would say that they're two solid points. They've got a point against Coventry. And I believe they were behind twice in that game, actually. So Coventry obviously are not a bad team. And although Leicester, of course, Leicester were down to 10 men, you do have to bear in mind year one parachute team and how the gap or the gulf between them should be pretty big. But so they have scored, I think it's now 7 goals in the last three. And obviously we were quite concerned about them going forward. Going in, and I'm sure and I know at least one Oxford fan I speak to doesn't feel like obviously isn't a big fan of the brand of football, but at the same time, they've scored 7 in the last three. So, they've got 5 points from, what is it, Oxford, can't even talk, Coventry, Leicester, and Bristol City. So, from their point of view, that's the sort of little mini run that you need to get confidence from going forward. But yeah, back to you for the ref in Bristol City and the atrocious refereeing of standards of the Championship.
Right, so I think John Brooks' last game in the Premier League was Newcastle against Chelsea, where he sent Nicholas Jackson off. Anyway, we'll ignore him. The first goal for Oxford, I'm going to talk about the Oxford goals here. I am still utterly convinced it is not a foul. So Oxford score from 3 set pieces, by the way. The first goal comes from a free kick. It's a brilliant delivery in by Brannigan, good header. We can't defend set pieces, but that's not important. It's not a foul. It's a 50-50 where Viner is holding the Oxford player. The Oxford player is holding Zach Viner. Zach Viner lets go, does the old, I'm not touching him. And then as soon as he does this, the referee blows and gives the foul in Oxford's Oxford not in to Oxford. Mr. Brooks, if you want to explain that to me, I'd happily take an explanation because I don't know what you're seeing there. The
I just
second
want to talk to him.
the second goal comes. It's an absolute worldie of a strike from Plaheta, and we know he has that in him. It is brilliant. I'm not taking anything away from him, but if you rewind, it comes from a corner, and it comes from the second ball of a corner. The corner, uh, you want to know how the corner's given? Plaheta runs down the right hand side, gets in behind, takes a heavy touch, then decides instead of he tries to put the cross in, accidentally whacks that straight out of play. What does the referee do? Gives a corner. All Plaheta's done is literally whack it straight out of play. I am seeing it with my own eyes right in front of me. I'm like, he's screwed that up. No, he's given a corner. Vitek's gone. Vitek has visibly turned around and just gasped, like, "What are you doing?" It's a brilliant strike. No taking away from that. But again, that's not a corner, and that goal never happens if he gives a goal kick, which it should have been. It's a great goal from us, Mehmeti, brilliant strike, and then the third goal. Again, I don't think it's a foul. I think Dickey and I think it's Will Lancashire. It's a 50-50. They also they both sort of fall on top of each other. It's like if we're giving fouls for that, what are we doing? It's a 50-50. Just let it go. Both of them foul each other. It cancels out. Just leave it. No, has to give a free kick to Oxford, and then it's a great free kick where Greg Leelitz gets it at a glance. But all three goals, in my humble opinion, and if you want to call me biased, feel free. But I think are not fouls and should not happen. And yeah, we should take a little bit of responsibility and should take for our actions. And we can't defend set pieces. That was absolutely abhorrently clear. But the referee didn't help us in the slightest. And it was very stop-starty. Cameron Brannigan went down about 3 times. Surely by the second time he should just be like, just go off. And then went down a third time, and then that's just ludicrous. They took the mick out of the ref a little bit, Oxford, but you'd expect that from Gary Rowett, playing the dark arts and stuff like that. But it's a great win for them. It's a bit of a reality check for us, but we go again. It's not. I don't think we were utterly terrible. Rob Atkinson actually went off 15 minutes into this game. And he plays on the left-hand side of our back three. We brought on George Tanner, who's a right-hand-sided sort of player, right-hand-sided defender. So he moved to the right-hand side of a back three, which meant Zach Viner, who was situated on the right, had to move to the left. And it just sort of muddled everything up. And Zach Viner, whenever he has played on the left-hand side of a back three, just doesn't look comfortable. Do you remember when Mayenda scored that goal against us last season, where
Yeah.
he was 1-on-1 with Zach Viner right at the end, and Viner had to shift across from the left hand side. He just looks so uncomfortable whenever he plays. And he just didn't want to go across to Mayenda. He just looked uncomfortable when he played there today as well. And that makes Rob Dickey also a little bit anxious. They've got a good partnership. When Dickey's on the left, Viner's on the right, they've got a good partnership. When Viner's on the other side, it makes things a little bit weird. Yeah, I didn't like that. I think Struber got that wrong. He should have just brought on Neto Borges and just played him on the left hand side of a back three. I thought Knight had a bad game, which is odd, because he never does. But that's a first. Yeah, we just didn't pose enough problems to Jamie Cumming in their goal. So it's a really disappointing one, because that's an Oxford side who I think lots of people had sort of now down near the bottom of the division, and we're at home. We're at Ashton Gate. We've been really strong at Ashton Gate for the longest time. We should have found a way to get the job done. We just didn't. We just sort of decided to conveniently hit the self-destruct button at points when we decided, instead of defending the set piece, we're going to let a man free and just going to let. Can't help the referee, can we? But yeah, bit of a. It kind of feels like a typical Bristol City result. That if I'm like, oh yeah, 5 games unbeaten. Okay. Yeah, lose at home to Oxford. Yeah, sounds about right.
As I've said a few times, the championship in a nutshell.
Yeah.
There it is. I think I'm with. There's something I've always stood by because a lot of my content last season was about how half of it was literally slamming the referees, and I'm saying that as a fan of a team that finished comfortably in fourth and won quite a fair few games, and I'm going. Even when we won, I kept saying the refereeing standard is terrible, and so therefore, to me, I think we need to cut out this. Oh, people are just sit. People only mention that when their team loses. People need to remember both can happen. You can still say you could still say Bristol City should take responsibility and take accountability, but that does not mean the ref doesn't deserve any either. It doesn't mean that the ref can go, "Oh, the ref was mint because we were poor." Like that's not quite how it works. So
I think we've also got to stop a little bit with the narrative of these guys can't take any responsibility or any sort of when I'm saying these guys referees, because we kind of go, oh, they don't have VAR, they don't have technology help. This is not, this is common sense. 90% of the ground can see what we're seeing, but the referee can't. Why is that happening? When a whole sort of stadium, pretty much apart from the away end, goes and appeals for one thing, that is very, very, very abundantly clear. When the players all of the players sort of stop and go for something, for a goal kick, or the attacking players, or just move, or the defenders sort of push, and no one comes up for a corner or anything. Everyone just says perfectly still. How do you give a corner? How do you completely go against everything? So if you don't have a clue, just go with the reaction. Sometimes, and I'm talking in circles here, but you know what I mean.
yeah,
No, no, no.
yeah.
These
There's
guys have got to
there's
stay.
been there's been not just across Sunderland games where you've been in the championship, but like there's been some pretty contentious, let's say, um, championship refereeing displays that I have certainly seen, and what you're describing to me doesn't sound too wildly inaccurate for the refereeing standards. Like I said, I do find that the worst ones are the ones that drop down from the Premier League because they haven't been good enough for that division. So as a result, Championship fans and Championship clubs get stuck with them. So, and I don't, like I've said before, and I will give referees this. I appreciate it is a hard job. I appreciate that it is a hard job. I would not have the balls to do it. I think there's a lot. I think it takes a lot of courage and guts to be a referee with the amount of abuse you put up with. And I agree, and we have to make it clear to fair on both sides. They shouldn't have to take abuse, and to the extent that they do. Obviously, there's going to be frustrated comments going towards them in a crowd in a game. Fair enough. It's natural. Like I've done it plenty of times before. Every fan does it. But but abuse is obviously wrong. But there's a fine line between abuse and genuine criticism and going, all right, I don't get that decision. I don't get why you ended up giving it that way, especially when it sounds like the one about giving a corner when Pajeta has just basically just stumbled it out of play. You know,
Absolutely ridiculous.
I need to watch it. Obviously, you've got me intrigued now enough to watch it. But yeah. So we'll leave it there. Like I said, look for Bristol City. Look, it's still what is it, third in the league? I think.
Yeah, we're still. Look, it's not a bad start. If you'd told me one defeat from the opening six, I would have bitten your hand off and eaten it. You know, I'm not going to finish
Well,
that
the
sentence.
weird thing is though, if say for example, I know you can't just flip results and change it, but
Yeah,
say if you flip this result with the Sheffield United one, say you lose 3-1 at Bramall Lane, you batter Oxford 4-1, then I don't think people would be. I think it would look because if Sheffield United win that game on the opening day, they probably don't lose six on the spin
yeah.
at the start. So yeah, it's all context, isn't it? But again, you know, Oxford were going to win at some point. So and obviously for you, it was just unfortunate that it was today.
We've
Um,
still had a good start. We're still
Very good start. Yeah.
look. I said last week that I was sort of fully convinced. I can't now take that back and go. A little bit unconvinced. I've still got to see more consistency from Strew, but I've still got to see what it is, what it's like when we play an Ipswich, a Southampton, a Leicester, a Coventry. Team that's proper top of the division. Maybe even a Millwall, a team like that. Because we have had relatively nice fixtures so far, but yeah, we've it's been a good start. This game is a bit of a yeah. It's a real punch in the gut, but it's fine. It's fine. Just got to move on, and I think that's the attitude the squad has had for a year and a half now. And that's not going to change. So I'm not really particularly overly concerned. I wouldn't be surprised if we show up to Deepdale and just win 3-0 or something like that. I mean, that's a championship. That's Bristol City.
It's about
So
how
yeah, I'm
you
not.
react to it, isn't it? It's about how you react to
Yeah.
this defeat. That's the mark of any team. When you lose, it's about how you respond to it.
And finally, because we play with Struber Bowl, it's in the sort of expansive, open sort of style of play that's really fast, really attacking, really high pressing. There are going to be games where sometimes we don't take our chances, sometimes we get a bit unlucky, and sometimes we concede, a few goals and we just can't quite get back into the game. Um, so compared to Manning ball last season, where it was all about control, where all about territory, possession, all of that good stuff. Sometimes this sort of game will happen, and that's unfortunate. That's just part of the risk that we're taking with the football we're playing.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Completely. Let's go quick look. Charlie Jarrett, I think, is coming. So Charlton are flying, doing well, doing so well. Stay up with relative ease. Long way to go, but I do fancy Charlton to stay up. I think Nathan Jones is a perfect suitable candidate for a team that's just come up from League One. Well, let's before we finish, let's briefly talk about Millwall versus Watford. So we have a Monday night football, but it is in the Championship. So I'm sure that Millwall and Watford fans are absolutely buzzing that their game has been moved to a Monday night. Um, I'm looking at the table at the minute, and again, obviously, the table hasn't fully formed yet. But I've said we'll get to another half a dozen games or so, then the table will start to gradually form to what we expect it, to what we think it'll be. Millwall and Watford have not had the absolute best of starts, but I think with Millwall, if they win tomorrow, they go joint, well, sixth effectively, just outside the playoffs on goal difference. Obviously, Watford, I didn't realise how poorly Watford has started. They are just above the bottom three. Obviously, they're down to 21st after Oxford's win today. What do you think about this game?
I mean, it's an interesting one because both sides probably need something. Millwall at home haven't been particularly great so far. They lost against Wrexham, against Middlesbrough, I think, in their two home games potentially. I'm
Yes,
not.
I believe. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
they'll have only played five because obviously they haven't played their 60. Yeah, I think you're right because I think they won away at Norwich, they
yeah.
won away at Sheffield United, and they won a game last week. And I can't remember who it was away at.
No, they drew. They drew at Charlton, didn't they?
Drew, of course they did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, they probably need to start
They need to get
winning.
something at the Den, don't they?
Yeah, they just need to get their home fans back on side. And to be fair, they have had a couple of tricky home fixtures. Borough at home is not easy, obviously at the moment, probably the hardest game in the championship. And Wrexham have got the quality to turn you around like that. So um, I think Millwall probably need to win. I'd probably say Millwall are slight favourites. I don't know what scoreline I went for my predictions. I think I went for a draw, possibly, or a narrow Millwall win. I think Watford, it'll be hard for them to go to the Den and uh, get a win. Look, I still like Watford's attacking prowess. Eran Kunda, the new striker Luca Kiermagaard, something like that. Hector Cipriano in midfield, I think is great player. They just need a little bit. I think Petzolano needs a win, doesn't he? Because he might come under a little bit of pressure if they don't. They had a disappointing defeat against Blackburn at home last time round, if I'm not mistaken. Um, so yeah, he probably needs something as well. So it's a fascinating game for that. These are probably two sides that, at their peak, can probably push nearer to the top of the division, like sort of edge of the playoffs, maybe even in the playoffs. So yeah, it's a fascinating. It's a pretty decent game, I think.
Fascinating matchup for a Monday night football, which I'll be at work, so I can't watch it, unfortunately. But yeah, I am not as anywhere near sophisticated as Carl, so I will not bring up the championship table at the minute. But yeah, we'll just quickly mention the top six. So we've got Middlesbrough in first, Stoke in second, third, and then the playoffs from third to sixth are Bristol City, Leicester City, Preston North End, and Coventry City. What a playoffs that would be if the season ended right now. And then the bottom three, as of right now, we have Sheffield United bottom with still 0 points, which is still quite staggering to me when you actually look at their squad. Sheffield Wednesday second bottom with 4 points, and then Derby County currently making up the relegation zone in third bottom with 5 points. But it is stressed that if Millwall do batter Watford tomorrow, there is a chance that Watford will drop into the bottom 3. But long way to go, of course. But no, Annie, thanks very much for joining me tonight. Thanks for Carl for trusting me to log into his account to getting this account added onto my console sort of evmux.com. Yeah, but no, thank you very much to everyone who has been watching. Like I said, for Derby Day, it's past for Ant for the minute until they go to the CBS in the return fixture. Oxford get their first win. We have Sheffield Wednesday get their first win. Sheffield United still pointless. Southampton and Ipswich, of course, one game abandoned. Southampton underperforming. But as of right now, the table belongs to Middlesbrough. Take care, guys. Thanks to everyone who has watched, and we'll see you next time.